Ayo, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Ace. This is Fantasized Football. We are back once again, bringing y'all some more fantasy football content for the 2021 fantasy football season. And we are here today to bring y'all some more individual player analysis for the 2021 fantasy football season, as we always do on Mondays. But before we get into that, I did want to quickly shout out each and every one of you that come by on a weekly basis and show your boy some love and support. I love you so very much. I love you, and so does my boy back there. Allen Robinson loves you too. We all love you. We all love each other, ELE, right? But if you're new as well, thank you for giving me a little bit of your time coming by. I really do appreciate it. If you do enjoy this video at any point, or you have been enjoying the content on the channel, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Help your boy reach his goal, reach our goal of 200 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the fantasy football season. I would really appreciate it. My boy would really appreciate it. And just a little tidbit of information, we did hit 150 subscribers on YouTube, so I have to thank you once again for the love and support. We are halfway, 3/4 of the way there, however you want to look at it, to the goal. Either way, it is really fucking hype. But yes, let's get into it. Who are we talking about today? We are talking about Ezekiel Elliot, running back of the Dallas Cowboys, and kind of looking at, do we think he's washed, or is he going to bounce back this season? I was requested to do this. If you ever have a request for a player for me to talk about, a subject, whatever, leave it down in the comments. I will make sure to get to it. But let's get right into the main event, to the meat and potatoes that is Ezekiel Elliott. Now, obviously, last season, Zeke did struggle a bit. He set a career low in terms of attempts outside of 2017, where he only played in 10 games. He also set career lows in terms of yardage, rushing touchdowns, yards per attempt. But how much of that was his fault, and how much of that was his situation working against him? I do think he was a bit unmotivated, but I also think he had a lot of factors working against him. One of the biggest ones is obviously that Dak was gone for most of the season. He suffered that gruesome ankle injury, but in the 4 games, weeks 1 through 4, where Dak played the whole game with Zeke, Zeke had 70 carries for 273 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground, and 30 targets, 23 catches, 159 yards, and 1 touchdown through the air. Good for 21.5 half PPR points per game. So he was elite when Dak was there. And obviously, Dak's going to be back this season, which should help Zeke in all facets of the game, opening up the field so that defenses cannot stack the box as frequently on Ezekiel Elliott because of the threat of the passing game. And then also, Dak does like to target Zeke in the receiving game. On top of that, the Cowboys' offensive line was fucking decimated last season. They were destroyed. At points throughout the season, they were missing as many as 4 of their starters, 3-4 of their starters. Even their backups were banged up. And this season, the line should be back and good to go. There should be some consistency there. And for what it's worth, take it with a grain of salt. PFF has the Cowboys' offensive line ranked as the 6th best offensive line going into the 2021 season. And last but certainly not least, do not forget that Zeke just signed a 6-year, $90 million extension in 2019. Whether that was the right move or not is yet to be seen. Probably not, honestly. That's a big second contract for a running back. But regardless, they're going to want to use him. They're going to want to get him involved. They're going to want to at least try to get their money's worth out of Ezekiel Elliott. So let's go ahead and take a look at Zeke's career efficiency metrics. 4.5 yards per attempt, a 3.3% touchdown rate on the ground, 76.8% catch rate, 6.6 yards per target, and a 3.2% touchdown rate in terms of the receiving game. Keep that shit in mind because it will come up a little bit later on. Now, I have the Cowboys projected for 637 pass attempts and 481 rush attempts for the 2021 season. So now, you know what time it is. let's look at some potential outcomes for Zeke. We will look at like kind of a lower end, maybe not the floor, because I think what we saw last year was kind of the floor for Zeke, and I expect him to be better than that, and then something a little closer to the ceiling as well. Now, if we look at the Cowboys over the past 3 seasons in terms of rush attempts, 2020, last season, they ran the ball 430 times, 2019, 449 times, and 2018, 439 times. Now, over that period of time, Zeke on average has handled 283 rush attempts. So on average, 64% of the team's rush attempts go to Ezekiel Elliott. Now, if you take out last season, if you exclude 2020 from those numbers, Ezekiel Elliott on average has handled 69% of the workload. Nice. In 2018 and 2019. So let's kind of assume that he's closer to what he was over the past 3 seasons this year, right? He handles 62% of the rushing workload on 481 attempts. That is going to be 298 attempts on the ground. Now, his career yards per attempt have been 4.5. Last season, he was at 4. Let's assume he regresses to the mean a little bit. He's not at the career average, but he's close. He's at 4.25 yards per attempt on 298 attempts. That is going to be 1,267 yards. Now, in terms of touchdown rate, like I mentioned, Zeke has been at a career average of 3.3% on the ground. Last season, he was at 2.5%. 2.5% of his rush attempts resulted in a touchdown. Now, this is in big part because the offense wasn't in as many scoring positions, right? So I expect him to be in more scoring positions. So again, let's assume he regresses to the mean, and we'll use 2.9% on 298 carries. That is going to be 9 touchdowns on the ground for Ezekiel Elliott. Now, let's hop on over to the receiving game for Zeke, right? Now, over the past 3 seasons, or I'm sorry, not the past 3 seasons, in the time Zeke has played with Dak, he has averaged an 11.7% target share. Now, I don't expect this to be the case because you have CeeDee Lamb there, you have the other weapons, Amari Cooper, Blake Jarwin, Michael Gallup, Dalton Schultz. Let's assume he's at 80% of what his target share has been in the time he's played with Dak. That is going to be a 9.4% target share on 637 pass attempts. That will be 60 targets for Zeke. Now, he has a career 76.8% catch rate. Again, we're kind of trying to project for a lower end, a little closer to the floor. So let's assume he's at 95% of his career average. That would be a 73% catch rate. Food for thought. That is lower than what he was last season with Andy Dalton, Ben DiNucci, and whoever the Fatucci else was over there when Dak was out, right? So a 73% catch rate on 60 targets is going to be 44 catches for Zeke. Now, the yards per target, the career yards per target it's a little misleading for Zeke because earlier on in his career, he wasn't as involved in the passing game. And with the lesser opportunities, defenses didn't expect it as much, so he was able to capitalize more frequently. But since he's been more involved in the passing game over the past few seasons, he's been at about 5.6 yards per target. So let's use 90% of that, right? That is going to be 5.04 yards per target. On 60 targets is going to be 302 yards receiving for Ezekiel Elliott. And then, like I mentioned, he has had a 3.2% touchdown rate. In terms of the receiving game, let's just use 3%. That is going to be 2 touchdowns. Now let's put it all together for kind of a lower end, a little floor kind of projection for Zeke. 342 touches, just over 20 touches a game, over 1,500 yards, and 11 touchdowns. 244.9 half PPR points, or 14.4 points per game, tied for the running back 10 in half PPR last season in points per game based on all running backs that played 6 or more games. Now, currently, he's coming off the board per Fantasy Pros half PPR ADP as the RB7. So if he's going to finish in the top 10, you don't exactly hate that, right? But obviously, you would like for him to finish above where he is being drafted if you're going to draft him as the RB7. So let's kind of look at if he can kind of regress to the mean in terms of his career efficiency metrics this season, kind of be more, as involved as he has been in the past in terms of opportunity share, what it would look like, and see if it makes sense to invest that running back 7 draft capital in Ezekiel Elliott this season. Now, his average workload over the past 3 seasons, like I mentioned, was 69%. Actually, in 2018, 2019, 69%. Let's use 67% because the past 3 seasons, 64, 69, nice. You go ahead, you even that shit out, you're looking at 67%, give or take. So 67% of the workload on 481 attempts is going to be 322 rush attempts going way of Ezekiel Elliott. And then if he can regress to the mean in terms of yards per attempt and his touchdown rate, you're looking at 4.5 yards per attempt and a 3.3% touchdown rate, 1,449 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground. And guess what? We're going back to the receiving game, baby. So now, again, 11.7% target share with Dak for Zeke. Again, I do think this will decrease a little bit with more weapons involved. So let's assume he's at 90% instead of 80% of what he's been. That's 10.4% in terms of target share. That is going to be 67 targets for Ezekiel Elliott. And then we use that career average 76.8% catch rate on 67 targets is going to be 51 catches. We are not going to use his 6.6 yards per target number for his career because, like I said, I do think it's a little misleading. So let's use the 5.6 in the years that he's been more involved in the passing game. 5.6 yards per target, 67 targets is going to be 375 yards receiving. And then we use the same 3% touchdown rate that we used last time on the kind of flourish stats. That's going to be 2 touchdowns receiving. Now, we're going to put it all together, baby. We're going to put it all together here. 322 attempts, 1,449 yards, and 11 touchdowns, 67 targets, 51 catches, 375 yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air. 373 touches, just under 22 per game, over 1,800 total yards, and 13 touchdowns. Good for 285.9 half PPR points, 16.8 half PPR points per game, tied for the RB4 based on all running backs that played 6 or more games last season. So, what does all of this shit mean? We always want to ask, what does it mean? How do you mean, Bert? How do you mean, Bert? What does all this mean for Zeke, right? Like I said, he's being drafted currently as the RB7 in Fantasy Pros half PPR ADP. So I think, humbly, I think that Zeke is worth that draft price. Because if he's going to finish in the top 10, if he should finish, if he plays 17 games in the top 10, worst case, he's top 12, and he has the upside to finish top 5. And I think that he actually, realistically, I mean, we've seen it before many of times, he could finish top 3 at the position. Because would anybody really be surprised if Zeke went for over 2,000 total yards and 15 total touchdowns with 50, 60 catches? I wouldn't be, especially with Dak back this season, especially if the offense is better and they're running the ball more frequently. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he finished top 3. He's got Dak back. You got the offensive line kind of put back together. Things are looking good. So to me, I think that Zeke is worth that draft price as the RB7 this season, and I will be drafting him in fantasy football drafts, and I suggest you do the same. But that's it. That's what I got for y'all. That's what we had to talk about. That is how I feel about Ezekiel Elliott for 2021 fantasy football. Let me know down in the comments if you agree, you disagree, any players you'd like to hear me talk about, any subjects you'd like to hear me talk about. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel to help me reach my goal of 200 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the fantasy football season. Check the description down below for the socials. Thank you all for coming by. I appreciate it so much. Me, my boy, we are out. We will catch y'all next time. And as always, thank you, love you, peace.